Good evening, everybody. Today on our webinar, our weekly webinar, we have Rob Lamontagne, and he's going to be presenting self-storage, RVs, boats, trailers, the whole thing. And we're super excited to have him here.
And he's a real estate investor, rent-own specialist, real estate trainer, mentor, father of three. I'm just reading it off here, and a winter hater. I guess that's why
Yes,
you're basking in the sun.
we do not like winter. No, I try and escape the snow and the cold.
Good for you. Good for you. That's in my 5-year plan eventually. I can
Yeah,
see it in your face. You're glowing.
And he's got his new light.
yes, and
Yeah.
I've got my new presentation light. Yes, so well, we're going to talk a little bit about self storage tonight. Self storage is a really interesting asset class, and it's it's kind of reared its head in about the last 8 to 10 years. Prior to that, it was taking a back seat, and nobody really talked about it. But through the period coming up to COVID, it started to take on a little bit of a different light. Um, because there are several advantages to it as opposed to other asset classes. And I guess the biggest one is that you're not dealing with any kind of landlord tenant board or regulations or these kinds of things. It's an asset class where um, if the tenant doesn't pay, um, within 30 days you're cutting his lock and you're selling his stuff. So you're not having to deal with rent boards and tenant boards and anything like that. It's really a much more focused and easily driven market. People want storage. You have a storage spot for them, and they pay you. So storage now is coming in multiple different formats. We've got storage, boat storage, RV storage, trailer storage, and then we've got the typical kind of garage style storage with the big door, and people take their stuff and they move it in. It's a fairly simple type of real estate. It's inexpensive to get into. You're not looking at the 60, 70, 80, $100,000 or more a door entry point. Um, your security is much simpler. In fact, a lot of storage facilities now are almost 100% automated. Um, you're going to a facility and you have an electronic code to get in. You're buying your access to your storage online. You get a gate code. You can buy locks and boxes and everything like that, all automated at the facility. And you put your stuff in and you lock it up, and it's secured by cameras and gates and security fences. So it's really an easy type of real estate to get into. And you're looking at an entry point that's much lower. I've seen storage go for anywhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 to $15,000 a door. So you're able to buy hundreds of doors for a fraction of the price of multifamily. By the way, guys, if people have questions as we're going along, please feel free to ask. This is kind of like an open forum. There's no set structure to it. Um,
I have lots of questions.
okay. Well, would you want to ask them as we go, or how would you like to do this?
It's up to you. I can ask as before I forget, but
Yeah, go right ahead.
the
Like
loan.
this is a really open, relaxed forum. So
Oh, perfect. And the loan to value, is it usually a 50% loan they'll give you on the
it
storage
it
facility?
depends. It's generally treated like a commercial type of loan. So typically they're looking in the 65 to 70% range. So you're still able to get decent loan to value on these properties.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. And do you have automated ones, or have you automated any of them?
I have not personally done that. I chose a slightly different route to the self-storage at this time. Self-storage is a more active type of business because of the fact that you have higher tenant turnover, and the fact that you are running a business. It's not quite the same as a multifamily. Um, you're much less hands-on in multifamily than you would be in self-storage. Um, so it's I what I did is, after taking a couple of courses in self-storage, I took 2 courses in self-storage, how to buy, how to manage, how to automate. I looked at it and I said, as my first step into self-storage, what I wanted to do was be much more passive and learn from somebody who really knew what they were doing. So I became involved in um, a partnership of facilities, and right now I'm a partner in 7 storage facilities across the United States, mostly in the Southern Belt, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. And the goal of that partnership is to get to somewhere between 13 and 17 storage facilities, and then operate them. And what the partnership is doing is essentially buying value add type storage. And by value add, they typically mean that they have not been brought up to current security standards. So you're buying a mom and pop type of facility. So typically you're driving up to them. There's no fence, no real security on site. And you drive up and you put your stuff in your locker and you lock it. The more modern type of facilities, what they're doing is they're completely fencing them. They're running automated gates. Everything is done by software, and you control your access with your phone. So the partnership that I'm involved in, what they're doing is we're buying these facilities that have not been upgraded, and then we're doing the renovations to bring them up to electronic standards and security standards. And then the plan is to operate these facilities for 3 to 5 years, and then resell them once they've been established as a more modern facility, and then put that money back into buying another facility.
And your the vacancy rate, do you also try to bring that up to the maximum possible?
Yeah, when we're talking about value add, we're talking about a couple of different things. One is the physical structure, but one of them is the problem with economic vacancy and physical vacancy. So you're looking at facilities typically which have over 30% either physical or economic vacancy. Now, physical vacancy is what it sounds like. It means that the unit is empty. Economic vacancy means that you've got somebody in there who's physically occupying your unit, but they're not paying. So your goal when you buy these facilities is to increase physical occupancy, and it's also to get rid of your non-payers. And like I said at the start, it's much easier when you're running these facilities to get rid of non-payers, because typically the contracts say that if they're 30 days in arrears, you're cutting the lock.
Okay, yeah, very nice. And is that where are those the 2 components for the value adds? Well, oh yeah, you said the security as well, right?
Yeah.
And then if automating the facility, that would, I would imagine, increase the value.
It does. It increases the value substantially. The other thing that you'll see in terms of value add is you'll often see the addition of related businesses. So, for example, you might contract out a section of your warehouse to a U-Haul to a U-Haul type business, or a business that sells boxes or rents carts and crates, or rents other types of vehicles. So you're actually looking to increase the services that are being provided at these facilities to make them more amenable. If you're looking at a lot of the storage type facilities now, just the automation of moving around, the ability, the carts, those types of things are ways that you can improve the value of the facility and increase the income. Because much like multifamily, the value of your storage facility is based on the net income at the end of the day. It's not based so much on the real estate as the income.
And these are most likely outdoor facilities. They're not the indoor ones, right? Sorry, I think I'm.
Rob, you're muted.
I don't know how I got muted. Yeah, you're looking at this point mostly from our perspective at the outdoor type facilities. The indoor facilities and climate control facilities are much more expensive to build and maintain.
Okay. And they're probably larger. They're like a car garage, right?
Yeah, you can have the facility. You can have the facilities that are still on one level, but the diamond type storage that are like several stories with elevators and things like that. Yeah, those are much more expensive facilities to get into and to build.
Okay. And what would you say, like, I know you said that the cost per unit was a lot lower than um, multifamily, but what would be something like a sizable storage facility that you would purchase or that would be for sale? That would be about
You
78 units, I see. 100.
Yeah, you can get facilities that are into the several hundred units for not that expensive. I pulled off a couple of offering memorandums if people wanted to see what a storage offering memorandum looks like.
Sure. And I can allow the share screen if you have any
Sure. Well, let me just pull up the document and we'll get a look at one of them. Okay. So let's get that up. Okay, so we'll do share. And there we are. Share. So I can't see what you guys are seeing. So just confirm that in fact you're looking at an offering memorandum with a storage facility in front of it. Everybody good? Okay. So typically what you're going to see in these kinds of offering memorandums is very much like a multifamily. We can get by the political stuff to start with. You're going to see an overview of the investment. They're going to give you some financials. And just like multifamily, you want to be really careful because a lot of the financials that they're going to give you are going to be pro forma and are going to be based on what the optimum the optimum financials would look like if you didn't have any economic or physical vacancy, and if you improve the security, and if you did a whole bunch of stuff. So you just have to be leery, just like multifamily financials, of what you're looking at. Then they go into comparables, and then they talk about the market. So this is a kind of a typical looking memorandum, offering memorandum for these kinds of facilities. Is everyone familiar with the term offering memorandum? Is anybody not familiar with the term offering memorandum? Raise your hand. Okay. An offering memorandum is something that they use for commercial buildings. And it's essentially something that the broker puts together, which is much more complete than just a listing on MLS. And it details a lot more information. So it's almost like a booklet about not only the property, but also the area, the demographics, the employment, the drive-by, things that could influence the business that you're running. Because in the end, you're buying a business when you're buying a self-storage unit. So you're going to see the typical kinds of things here you're going to see the price. So you can see from this, okay, we're looking at 368 units, okay, and a cost of 1.6 million. So you're talking about much less when it comes to cost per unit than you're talking about multifamily. If you're talking about 1.6 million in most places, in Ottawa, you're talking about a fourplex. This is 368 units.
Yeah.
So
and this is also in the States in USD, right?
Yeah, this is USD. This particular facility is actually in the States. It's in there, Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, come on. There we go.
That's
okay,
a
so
nice facility.
What's that?
It looks like a very nice facility.
Yeah, and I mean, you're looking here at a cost per unit that's very reasonable. You're able to afford this kind of a thing. You know, you're looking at buying into a facility, and even when they're talking 25% down, so you can see 25% down, they're talking about 75% loan to value financing. Okay, you're talking about some decent financing on something like this, and you're down to $36 a square foot. Typically, when we're looking at storage facilities, we're looking for things that are under $40 a square foot, and we like to get it under $30 a square foot. But everything depends on the kind of facility. So this is non-climate controlled units. It's a single story, and it was built in 1984. The other thing we look for is extra land. So we've got 4 acres here. So when we're looking at this particular property, if we see it on a map, there's probably room for expansion for us to add more units at a reasonable cost. So they got some nice pictures. So they got some investment overview. So they talk about the property itself. They talk about any improvements the owners have done. They talk about the businesses in the area, and they highlight. So it's right on Highway 80. These are things that they'll highlight very definitely as the drive-by numbers. They'll talk about how much traffic goes by it. They'll talk about the cap rate. Cap rate are important. And typically what we're finding in most types of self-storage, if you get into the big cities, you're going to be talking about low cap rates. But typically through most of the US, you're going to be talking about cap rates in about the 7% range. So again, there are things that you can do. 80% physical occupancy and 55% economic occupancy. So here's a value add right off the bat. Okay, you have 55% economic occupancy, which means even though you're 80% occupied, only half of your tenants are actually paying. So this is the kind of facility that you go in as new management and you start cleaning out. They talk about the number of people and in the area, because they're typically looking to have population density or storage density of less than 4 square feet, 5 square feet, 6 square feet per person in the area. So they're looking for the kinds of areas where storage is required. So if you're looking to buy, that becomes important. Okay. So again, they've got site description, units, construction, what a description of it. They give the populations. You get your demographics. Okay, how many people live within 3 miles, 5 miles, 7 miles? They'll give you a map and they'll show you where the facility is and what the major cities are. People typically don't mind driving a little bit to get to a storage facility. Especially if they're storing like boats and trailers and things like that, they don't mind if they've got to drive a little bit because they're only going to the storage facility a couple times a year. If they're storing household furniture, they want the facility to be closer. So depending on the kind of things that you're storing. So maps again. So here you can see what they're showing is the buildings on the land. So you can see there's room at the back there. There's probably a third of the property that you could still expand and build more units. And that's a big plus when you're looking at these facilities.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
And
they
for
show
the due diligence,
Yep.
Like multifamily, we have to make sure that we confirm like on the insurance, because sometimes what they're paying won't be what we're paying, and
Absolutely.
all that kind of stuff. And then like you were saying on the due diligence, that a lot of it's based on pro formas, right? So what would you get? Would you get like a year, 2 years, 3 years back on the business gross, or?
I always ask for trailing 12, which is the previous 12 months. So if somebody's producing an offering memorandum in March of 2021, okay, I would be looking for the current year to date and 2 prior years, full years. So I'm looking for 2 years plus current all the time. And yeah, you do want to make sure that you're operating with actual numbers and not pro forma. Now, one thing to notice here, if I can make this a little bigger, let's see if you can see it better. Maybe it's not going to let me make it bigger. But one of the things that you're concerned about when you're looking at storage is the size of your units. These facilities that have mostly 5x5 and 5x10 storage units, that's not a good asset mix. What you want to see is at least 100 square feet for the bulk of your units. So you're looking at your 10x10s, your 10x15s, and your 10x20s. Those are the kinds of units that you really want, especially when you're looking at garage type facilities. So you can see this one, if we're seeing total units, we've got 27 of our units that are 25 square feet. You're not storing a lot of stuff in 25 square feet, okay? But we have 70 of our units that are 10x10 and 52 that are 10x15. And 63 that are 10x20. So when you're going through the offering memorandum, you really want to zero in on the size of the units you're getting, not just the total number.
So a 10x10 would be the equivalent of a 1-bedroom to store?
For storing, yeah, you could probably store a 1-bedroom apartment in a 10x10. You're stacking it.
Yeah.
You're stacking your stuff in 10x10. But yeah, you could probably store a 1-bedroom apartment in 10x10.
And those are, would you say they're the prime, like a 10x10? Like usually on multifamily, we like the 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, most storage facilities prefer the 10x15 and 10x20 size. So you're looking at something that's the size of a small garage, more than just the 10x10s. And typically, people are not the people who use storage are not mostly people who are moving an entire apartment into them. Most of the time, the people who are using storage are using storage to store their extra stuff. They live in an apartment and have bought more stuff than they've got room for. Or you've got people who are downsizing and people who are going from an apartment to a condo. And there's a period of 6 months to a year there where they don't have enough space for the stuff. They weren't able to downsize quickly enough in order to accommodate their move. So those are a lot of the stuff. You will see people store seasonal type things. So people who have lawn equipment like lawn tractors and boats and things like that will go into storage units. Some people even put their cars in there. So it's really not, for the most part, it's not people who are storing an entire house or apartment's worth of stuff. It's more people who are using it because they don't have adequate space at home. So if we're looking here, okay, this actually, you've got current numbers here, and they've given you current numbers and pro forma, which is good. So your current numbers, you're showing a 44% vacancy, but they're showing pro forma that you should be expecting 19%. So you're expecting that you're going to see about a 20% vacancy in a property like this in this area. Now that's much more typical. Also, when you're talking about multifamily, you tend to be looking for vacancy in the 5% range. Whereas when you're talking about storage, it's not uncommon to see 15 to 20% vacancy, physical vacancy, because there's a fairly high turnover in these types of facilities. So you see the different kinds of income. They've got rental income, retail income, late fees, rental insurance. That's another thing that storage facilities will offer is insurance, and the facility will be taking a kickback on the insurance. And then you got your expenses, typical kinds of expenses. You've got your real estate taxes, property insurance, marketing, advertising, payroll, admin, bank and credit cards, repairs and maintenance, utilities. So the same kinds of things that you're going to see in multifamily, but your numbers are much less.
And for
Okay.
a 10 by 10, what would you rent that for? And what would be the purchase price again?
It depends where it is. Like I said, we typically look for facilities that have 10 by 10 or greater. Your cost per square foot is going to vary depending on where the property is. You can see cost per square foot renting anywhere between 60 cents and $1.20 per square foot in a lot of facilities.
Oh, okay.
So it really depends on the size of the unit.
Right.
Okay, executive summary, they've gone through that. So comparables, then just like for multifamily, if you're looking at multifamily, they will have different facilities, different types of different facilities in the area, and comparing them in terms of costs. And then one difference between multifamily and self-storage is what you're going to see is a market overview. They're going to be talking about the demographics, the economy, overview of the area, population. So these are the kinds of things that you're going to see in an offering memorandum for self-storage. Any questions?
No, it's been very good, Rob, so far, very informative. I've learned a lot about the self-storage. I had a general idea.
Stop
What about
sharing.
VTBs?
Actually, it's very interesting because in storage, you're more likely to find your vendor much more agreeable to carrying part or all of the financing. It's something that I've found in the States as well as in the asset class. So generally speaking, in the States, vendors are much more agreeable to vendor type financing. And then in self-storage, I find that your vendors are much more agreeable to doing it as well, even more than multifamily.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. And obviously you're doing both taxes, right? You're doing the taxes in the US and in Canada.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Because you're running a business in the States, so you definitely have to declare taxes in the US. And then depending on how you're structured, any income, any taxes that you pay in the US would be a credit against your taxes in Canada. Again, depending on how you're structured, but that's more a conversation to have with your accountant and your lawyer.
Right. And and the nice thing is you're being paid in US funds as well.
Yes. Your income and your expenses are all US funds.
Yeah. So if you ever decide to switch them to Canadian, it becomes a big pot of gold.
Yeah, but there's a key you got to be really careful of as well, because the minute you bring that, even if you're running a business in the States and you've got it as a corporation, the minute that you bring that money into Canada, it becomes taxable.
Oh, okay. So it's good to make money there, play with the money there, and grow the money there.
You growing the money there, yes, for sure, because they have a much different tax system down there. So you want to structure yourself and the ownership in a tax efficient way.
Wow, that's great. Anybody have any questions? You can all take your mics off. Feel free to ask Rob any questions. He's been very informative on the information for sure. And if you want to know more, they can reach you, Rob, at obviously I know on Facebook.
Hey,
The-
Rob, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So, sorry, my camera's a little off right now. There's no light, so it's either you look at darkness or you look at nothing.
No problem.
Your voice is perfect, Marcos.
Thanks, Paul. No, I was gonna say, when it comes to that market analysis that you were speaking about, is it and you mentioned as well as how the range of the price per square feet can really vary. When it comes to the market analysis of these projects or even like properties like that, are we more susceptible to changes based on the sizes of the city, or is it primarily just based, or like, yeah, or is it just based on the need of the area, and how do you adjust for the needs required by the area?
But a little bit of both. If you have a
Mhm.
shortage of storage in an area, so for example, when they start talking about only having 3 and 4 and 4 square feet of storage per person in the area, you start to see an increase in the value of the rent per square foot, because there's a shortage, and that's usually an impetus for somebody to either go in, build more, or to expand a current facility. But it's very much predicated also on where you are. So for example, if you're looking to buy a storage facility and you buy it in LA, you're going to pay a lot more than you're going to pay for a storage facility in small town Missouri, for example.
Yeah, I don't have any plans to go to Burbank anytime soon. So
yeah, exactly. But it's an extreme difference, just like it would be if you're doing multifamily.
Yeah.
To buy your storage in a large city, like in New York or a Chicago or a Detroit. Actually, Detroit's probably not, because Detroit's real estate is crap right now.
Yeah.
So,
how can you also identify the need for the space exactly? Because you mentioned the different sizes available, and there's also like commercial storage that you can have for like commercial places and businesses. So how do you identify the needs or the niche that you can provide?
Well, you start out by covering the commercial real estate websites. So, for example, you'd start doing searches on LoopNet and Crexi as your 2 big ones in the U.S. and then you'd start narrowing down. If you're looking for a certain size, or you're looking for a certain area, you start to narrow down what your criteria is going to be, and then you can start in your searches, refining your searches. The key is, as you start to find anything that looks even remotely interesting, you do just like you do in multifamily. You send a note to the broker, to the realtor, and you say, hey, can you send me the income and expenses for this one? Oh, yeah. and when they do, you send them a note and say, oh, by the way, if you have anything that looks like this, then we would be interested. So for example, when I get in touch with a realtor, I'll let them know what my buy-in criteria is. They call it buying criteria. So we typically look for 100 or more units. And we're looking for facilities which have economic vacancy. So we're looking for specific problems that we want to fix. So we're looking for either physical or economic vacancy, or deferred maintenance. So if all of a sudden they say, you look at the picture and there's no fence around it, there's no security cameras, those are things you want to look at that you can fix. If you're looking at vacancy, you're looking for high vacancy when you're buying these things, because they're generally something that you can address with proper management.
So
these are the way you add value.
That's what I was going to say. You think it's a little bit easier to identify these value adds with these storages?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. That's a nice little thing, a nice little trick to the trade.
Yeah. And when you're talking to the brokers, you specifically tell them you're looking for value add. You're looking for value add facilities. You're looking for facilities that other people generally don't want. Because you're looking for problems, because that's where you're going to do well. Just like in multifamily, you're looking for a vendor who has a problem, and you're going in to try and fix his problem.
Yeah, and I know you did.
The timer's ticking.
Okay.